Podcast City Network.
This is Brad Chandler, and you're listening to The Brad Chandler Show.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of the Brad Chandler Show. You can find us on Twitter and on YouTube. Just search for Brad Chandler Show. With me today, I have As Misery Fades frontman, Zack. How are we doing, buddy?
Pretty good. Yourself?
I'm still breathing, so, I mean, there's that.
Can't complain there, right?
No, I mean, like, you can, but nobody's going to really care.
Yeah.
So, dude, it's been a long time since I've talked to you. I don't remember actually the last time I've seen you. I do remember the first time I met you, and I was actually going over it earlier today in my head. I was like, when was the first time I saw the guys in As Misery Fades? And I want to say it was down at Cook's in Naugatuck.
Yeah.
And I think it was right before I think you guys were getting ready to play a show up in Worcester.
Yeah. I can't remember. I know it was like probably like a couple weeks after, because my pet Carcass had played with Left Hand Backwards, and I was playing guitar with them. And I remember like I was playing guitar, and like you ended up pointing me out. You're like, "Hey, aren't you in my pet Carcass?" I was like, "Yeah, I got my two little projects or whatever."
Yeah, and I think I've seen My Pet Carcass once, and that was up at
it was Max Capacity. I think.
Yeah, Max Cap. So it wasn't actually a show up. You guys weren't playing a show in Worcester. We were going to the same show. I think it was a Black Dahlia Murder show, and I believe it was Mike and your other guitarist. We were all like talking, and you guys just handed me a demo. You were just like, here, well, take this. Like you obviously listen to good music, so listen to this. Tell us what you think. And honestly, man, I love everything about this band. You guys have the energy. You guys have the harmony, like your vocal style, along with the singing and everything like that. I love it. A lot of people are getting sick of it. Not me. But tell us how As Misery Fades started.
Well, I mean, I had played in bands like for years. I had played with James, the guitarist, and our old drummer Aaron, and knew Mark, the guitarist, does clean vocals up through school. So they ended up just getting a hold of me one day, and they were like, "Hey, we need somebody to do vocals. Like, we don't really have anybody up here, because it was up in Chester. It was like middle of nowhere, So they hit me up and they were like, "Hey, you want to try to do some vocals?" I was like, "Yeah, I got my pet Carcass, I'm playing guitar, but I'll take on another project. Music's always fun." So I went up and kind of started jamming with them a little bit, and just throwing down some vocals. I was like, I can fill in or whatever, until you guys find somebody. And then it just ended up being kind of a permanent thing.
Yeah, and I gotta apologize. I said Mike, I meant Mark.
I kind of figured.
I'm sure I'm not the only person in the world that's got your guys' name wrong. I love his clean vocals. I'm not a person for clean vocals. I've always been like, I want to hear gutturals. I want to hear high screaming and whatnot. And it's because there's a lot of bands out there that try to do it that just can't do it. And he does it justice. And you guys both, and you guys mash well together. And it's not like you guys clash at all. So, you brought up My Pet Carcass, which is another project that is that something you still do, or is it?
We kind of just parted ways like a while ago. I mean, I still keep in contact with some of the guys. Kevin, the vocalist, I work with him. He's been a good friend of mine for a long time, and we still talk about like trying to get together and doing something, but it's just never really, pans out. We don't really have like an area to do it, like an actual space. So
And nobody
I
has
don't know. I mean,
time and
it's
whatnot.
yeah, time is, Kevin ended up having a daughter like 6 years ago or something. And, like we were still playing a little bit then, but life kind of just took over, and you know, just didn't really pan out so much. But I do still play guitar here and there. I get together with Mark sometimes, and we'll just play. So
Yeah, it's so hard once people start having like getting a family, getting a job, having to be adults, and when
yeah,
stuff just starts drifting away, and you can't practice as much as you were able to when you were like in your early 20s, early to mid 20s. So you mentioned that one of your ex bandmates had a child. I don't know where the hell I was, or what like social media is doing to me, but I just found out today that you had a kid.
yeah.
So I'm gonna say it. Congratulations, buddy. And
Thanks, man.
we were talking a little bit before we started recording here, and you said Halloween baby.
Yeah, first one in the hospital, 1 in the morning, like 1:05, I think, in the morning. So it was pretty cool. Halloween costume parties every year. You know what I mean? So
Right. Wait till the kid turns 21. It's like, Halloween, it's my birthday. Let's go get trashed.
all right.
So, congratulations. How's the dad life?
It's good, man. I mean, it's a little overwhelming at first. Like I took like probably 2 weeks off of work. When we first had him, and we're a lot of late nights and stuff like that. But for the most part, he's sleeping pretty good through the night. Last night he was up like every couple hours, so like he has his nights where he doesn't sleep that great. But most of the time, like he'll wake up once, maybe twice throughout the night, and give him a bottle, he goes back to bed. So he's a good kid though. Like couldn't ask for a better kid.
Well, no, maybe you can have a father son a jam going on when he gets older.
Yeah.
And teach
It
him how
already
to play.
seems like he's starting to like music. So
Teach him how to play drums, because a good drummer is
yeah,
hard to
right.
find.
I know, right? Have to get him an electric kit, so a little quieter.
Yeah, get him an electric kit, some headphones, and
Right?
a little amp, whatever. Mom will be okay with.
Yeah.
I'll play your drums.
All right.
So, how are you doing? How is your family and everything? COVID, we haven't talked since COVID. We
Yeah.
we kind of talk here and there on Facebook. We send each other messages and whatnot once in a while. And how are you doing?
COVID, I don't know. COVID's been kind of crazy. I mean, when shit really hit the fan, like I was out of work for about a month and a half or so, and at that time, Mark was also out of work, so like he was just on a writing kick, like pretty much writing the new album, and like he'd pitch tunes that he wrote, and like James would come over and like kind of mesh with him and see what they could do, and they'd pitch stuff over to me, and I'd be sitting around my house like not doing much, so just be writing, and you know, yeah, pretty much sitting around playing video games, pretty much just twiddling my thumbs, like so. Like during that, like month and a half or so, we got a lot of the stuff written out for the album, and ended up going back to work in April, and basically, like Jeff, our bassist, ended up like really just gearing up to record. Like got like plugins and Logic, and he's got a bunch of guitars and stuff. So like once he got everything kind of situated and bought all the necessary stuff, like we all just kind of went over and started tracking our parts and everything, and we really were over there separately. Like I barely even saw all the guys as a whole throughout the whole recording process. Like Mark and James would go and do some guitars, and then I'd go over later in the week and just throw down some vocals. And like, admittedly, I had to go back a few different times because vocals are real touchy with recording and everything. And Jeff was kind of learning too at the time. So it was like, once we got all the settings right and all the plugins where they needed to be, like, went pretty smooth after that. So,
I have the utmost. I have so much more respect for vocalists now. Even vocalists that I don't like, I have so much more respect for them because my last band, I was a vocalist, and it wasn't just vocally like how to prepare your instrument, your throat, your all the exercises that you actually have to do. Like if you're constantly smoking cigarettes and stuff, that's gonna end up affecting your vocal cords. But like I ended up quit smoking cigarettes when I became a vocalist. And the hardest thing for me, I used to be able to, when I was younger, write lyrics like it was nothing. But then, like when I was given a subject, like I can write about whatever I want. Like if I'm thinking about something off the top of my head, I can write about it. And that was one thing that I had a problem with when I first became a vocalist, was how to take what I wrote down and put it to the music. Like I didn't like so how did you do that? Like what got you what inspires you when you're writing your lyrics, and do you come up with your vocal pattern while you're writing the lyrics, or is that afterwards?
Well, I mean, it kind of depends. I mean, the first EP we did, I did a lot of like, because I was like working security at like, there was not a whole lot to do sometimes. So like I'd sit there and I'd, like I feel bad for the other guard that was on shift with me, because I'd sit there and I just replay like this one section of a song and just like write and like like that seems okay, but like it could be different. So like I back and forth just playing over this one part and just kind of like writing down lyrics and stuff. And then when it came down to it, like I've got like a notepad in my phone that's just full of like lines and just like random stuff that comes to my head, you know what I mean? Like, so a lot of it, especially with this newest album, like it was a lot of like I'd go through and I'd like pick a couple lines and I'd see how they fit with the riffs and everything, and the patterns and the rhythms and stuff. And some of them, would just fit right in. Some of them would be just about there, but I needed to like remove a syllable here or there or something, or like add another word, in a line just to kind of like get it to fit where it needed to be. But I found one of the hardest things lately is like trying to like kind of get out of my comfort zone and not keep writing about the same stuff or using like similar lines. You know what I mean? Like kind of like broaden my vocabulary almost with with the writing.
One of the first things I did when I started writing was I went out and bought a thesaurus.
Yeah.
I bought a thesaurus, I bought a dictionary, and I was going through it. Like I used to get in trouble at work because I would sit there and like my work would be sitting to the side and I'd be going through like a thesaurus or the dictionary or something. And my boss would be like, well, what are you doing? You got work to do. And I'm like, oh, sorry. Yeah. And I'd still get my job done, but
yeah, right.
it's real hard because like you get in that one groove and you're like, oh, that worked, so why not try it for this?
Yeah.
It's basically like you're writing a story, but you're putting it to music.
Yeah, a lot of times, like when you're a vocalist as opposed to like a guitarist or something, like it can like take over your mind, like trying to like I'll be at work or something, and I'll just be like listening to music or like just be working or whatever, and like a line will come into my head, and it's like like how can I how can I work off of that? Like where can I go with that line? Like like what kind of is the underlying subject in it? Like
how do I
so, like,
incorporate it
constantly in my head about it?
So you were talking about the notepad thing in your phone. The one thing that I know a lot of vocalists do is they record through their phone when songs are written, and then they sit there and they listen to it over and over and over
Yeah.
Like by the time it's actually out and people hear it for the first time, you're already sick of it.
Yeah, people are like, "Oh, that song is awesome." It's like I hate that song.
Right.
Heard that song too many fucking times.
Exactly, dude. So that is the reason why I have more respect for vocalists now, because I mean you've got the musicians, you got the drummers, the bassists, and the guitarists. I mean they have their thing, and that can get stuck in their head too, and they get like, oh, what is it? They get stuck on something, and you got these 3 to 4 guys that can work together. When you're writing vocals, or not vocals, lyrics, do you and Mark get together? Do you and the rest of the guys get together and like try to figure it out, or is it just a thing that you do? Lyrics are just your thing.
Well, I mean, I don't know, like Mark, like a lot of times, Mark will like, kind of demo out a song, and he'll have like a chorus idea, and like kind of a lot of times I'll like kind of try and figure out, like, or he'll have like already like a message in the chorus, and like I'll kind of, kind of write around it a little bit, and like a lot of times too, like Mark and James will kind of like, pitch some lyrics into a song, like Betrayal, actually. Mark and James like really like I had a lot of hands in on the lyrics of that song, like, and I kind of went in like, like took kind of what they had written, and like I changed some stuff and tweaked some things, simplified some stuff, or elongated some things just so it would kind of like fit the patterns I had in my head a little bit better, like
Right.
kind of like fit a little bit more in what I would write, you know what I mean? So like it's kind of like collaborative. I mean, a lot of times, like I say, Mark will already have like a chorus kind of laid out, and I'll kind of from there just take it and write kind of around that idea of the chorus. So
So,
which, I mean,
okay,
it
so
kind of becomes difficult too with, when you're writing lyrics, as opposed to like if you're a guitarist or something, like you can pick up your guitar and just like noodle around and, fall on like a cool riff or a cool part or whatever. And it's like, you can't really do that with vocal, writing lyrics and stuff. It's like, you really gotta like think about it and like, really gear it towards what you want to say, as opposed to, you can't just like spew out some random words and hope they just work,
sometimes you can do that.
Yeah.
So you get help from the guys sometimes, and so you're a guitar player. I know that you play bass too. Do you help write the music?
Not so much. I mean, I've pitched some random like riff ideas and stuff like that. Like, like I say, me and Mark will get together and we'll just like jam guitar just for fun, because I miss it. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
I started off as a guitarist. I started off as a bassist technically, and then picked up a guitar. But like, that's kind of, I don't know, still like, my love almost. Like I like doing vocals. I like being a vocalist and everything. But like, I'm also a little more comfortable with guitar and bass, because like, when it comes to like playing shows, like if you're a front man, like you got to be able to like address the crowd and stuff. And it's a lot of times I just become like tongue tied. Like I don't really know what to say to people between songs, like if you're a guitarist, you just got to worry about making sure your stuff's still in tune. You know what I mean? And like, get a drink of water or whatever. If you're a vocalist, you got to like entertain people between songs, and not just have this like dead air,
That was my biggest problem as a vocalist. I was not a lead vocalist. I didn't know how to draw the crowd. I knew what I was talking about when I was screaming, because I wasn't singing,
Yeah.
and so let's talk a little bit about your other projects. You said that you played guitar, your love is for guitar, and you started off as a bassist. Let's just talk a little bit about My Pet Carcass. How did that end up starting? We already know how, like, what happened, why you guys aren't playing right now, but like, was that your first band that you were in, or was there a band before that?
Well, I mean, technically, I was in like a punk rock band in high school. Like when I really first picked up the bass, like it was me and like two of my like close friends. It was my like more or less my best friend in high school and his little brother playing drums. my buddy was playing guitar. I was doing vocals and, playing bass. And I was like, we did that for, through high school. Probably from like 15 to like 17 or something. And then I didn't do, it was probably like a year or two maybe where I didn't do much. And then I actually, Aaron, the old drummer from As Misery Fades, and James, the current guitarist, we were in a band together called Lost Sense of Thought, with this kid Dominic, who now lives in Texas. But I was playing bass in that for a couple of years. We had like a good like 6 to 8 month string of like shows we played, and we like put out a little demo or whatever.
Right.
And then that kind of fell apart a little bit. I wasn't. It was probably like maybe 6 months or so. I wasn't doing much, and then when it came down to my pet carcass, it was one of my buddies from high school had actually hit me up initially. He was like, "Hey, come jam with this band." It was just like a no-name project, you just kind of jam with some people. And that's where I met the drummer Adam and Frank, the bassist, like, that was in my pet carcass down the road. So I kind of like started jamming with them, and my buddy Chris, the one that introduced me to everybody, and Frank kind of like went off and did their own thing. I didn't do much for like probably a couple months, and then I ran into Adam, the drummer from my pet carcass, when I was working. I think I was working at like just a convenience store or whatever in town. And I was like, "Oh, what are you doing? Are you doing music and stuff?" Because I was like kind of chomping at the bit to start doing stuff again. And he was like, "Yeah, like I'm jamming with these guys or whatever." And like, I went to like, I was like, "Yeah, like I'd like to play guitar." So went and tried out on guitar, but they already had like another guitarist that had already been coming around. They were like, "Well, we do need a bassist." And I was like, "I'm in," Talking the drummer badly about it, It's like, "Yeah, we're getting together, today." So I went up there and, I met Kevin, the singer, met everybody, and we played for probably, I don't know, it was probably a few years, probably at least like 3 years or so. I was playing bass, and it was like a 5 piece, and then both the guitarists kind of, took off, and there was like a lull for like probably a good 6 or 8 months where we weren't doing anything. And I was like, you know what? I was like, I can play guitar. And I had like just ran into Frank, the bassist, at one of the bars in town. I was like, "Dude, like, do you want to jam or something?" And I ended up hitting up Adam and Kevin. That's when I jumped on guitar. Frank jumped on bass, and that was kind of like the reboot almost of my pet carcass. Did that for a little while. So that was probably when you actually saw us, I think.
Yep.
Was
Yep.
in
I remember
that stage of it.
Yep. I remember Frank because I think he was wearing a cattle decapitation hoodie, and I was just like,
Sounds like him.
I was like, cattle, yes! Like, I love those guys. And anybody,
Yeah.
if I ever see somebody like wearing their stuff, I have to walk up to them and be like, "Hey, so you like cattle decapitation?" And
Yeah.
I'm just like, I have to have a conversation with him. That's what it is. I'm one of those weirdos. So
I'm
that's
that guy too.
Actually, you and I have had conversations about weird stuff that I think we've had conversations that didn't even have to do with music. I don't remember exactly, but I know we've had conversations before where I was like, "Wait, what? What's going on here? What is he talking about?" So, you also did a promotion. You were a promoter. You ended up putting on a show at max capacity.
Yeah, actually, I got 2 of them, and then I did the third one. Yeah, I did like 3 shows. Well, actually, the first show was kind of like more collaborative with like James, the guitarist from As Misery Fades and stuff, and then like down the road, we ended up doing another. We did more than just these 3 shows, but more or less, Max Metal 2 and 3 were more me. Like the second one, it was like 7 or 8 bands. First one was 6 bands, and the third one was a 10 band one.
Yeah,
I think you got. I think you guys ended up playing that.
I think I played twice in that show.
Yeah. Actually, it was probably Left Hand and composing, right?
Composing, yeah. I was so pissed off about that show, but we'll talk about that another time.
Yeah.
So now that we're getting into talking about shows, let me ask you: in Massachusetts, there's a lot of great places to play, and you got the 13th floor. You've got Sammy's up in Revere. But one of my favorite places to play was always Maximal Capacity, which is what is it now?
It's Geraldine's now, I believe. It was Poor Richards for a little bit, but because they had another guy take over. Yeah, they had another guy take over, and he used to run Geraldine's. I think it was in Springfield or something.
Okay.
And like he had a lot of shows there. It was like Metal Olympics, like a competition thing. That was before I was in My Pet Carcass. My Pet Carcass had played it, but yeah, he puts on a lot of shows. Like he tends to work with a lot of tribute bands and stuff. But
that's because they make the money.
Maximum Capacity. Yeah, I know, right? Sadly, but
nobody wants to hear originals. They want to hear Elton John and shit like that and Whitesnake.
Yeah. Right.
Which is unfortunate because those bands used to be where we were or where we are. So
yeah, every big band was a local band once,
Yeah, exactly. So my question is, where is your favorite place to play within Massachusetts?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, Max Cap was always a good place. Like I always like playing there. Plus, the whole idea of like actually having put on a couple of shows there was cool. The Waterfront was cool too, but they shut down a while ago, and it's like something happened with change of ownership, and then like the new owners didn't like keep it up or something. I don't know exactly what happened, but I guess more or less Max Cap is still, kind of my favorite place to play. I mean, I've played there more times than I can count, really, between the shows I've put on there and the shows that, I've just played on. Which I think Hothfest was actually, Hothfest was actually, right, it was actually there. And I think Rockin' on the River, I think that was it was at Waterfront, like a big, like, festival thing Jamie Cross put on. He put on quite a few shows too, so.
Yeah, he definitely did. I went to, I believe it was Hothfest one year. I'm not sure what year it was. And I was just like, okay, this is cool. This is cool. And that's when I ended up meeting Jamie. And then very good dude. Great tattoo artist too. Gotta say.
For sure.
Got a few tattoos from him promoting Jamie Cross there. So all right, so your favorite place most likely you're saying is between Waterfront and Max Capacity. Do you have a favorite place that you have played outside of Massachusetts?
I don't know. We haven't really played too many shows outside of Mass. Like it's just hard to like, get out there and stuff. But let me think. What was it? The Roadhouse or something like that? I think it was in Connecticut or something. I don't think they have a whole lot of shows there, but
that little bar in Manchester. Is
that
what you're talking about?
That place was pretty cool. And then Cooks was cool too.
It was called like All Stars at first, and it became like a country bar that still had like metal bands come in. They had the little riding bull and
Yeah, I don't think they had it there when I played there, but
no, they
that place is cool.
Anytime they had a show going on, they put the bull in the back or whatever.
Yeah. Cherry Street Station was always fun. Anytime we played there.
Yeah. Especially Cherry Street's a good place. Bleachers is pretty good.
Can't say I've ever played there or been there for that matter.
It's a good place. It kind of has that. It's a bar and whatnot, but it's got a good vibe and good sound system and everything. But so you guys haven't played outside of Massachusetts all that much? Like no Rhode Island shows, no like New Hampshire or Vermont?
Well, we played one show in Rhode Island. It's just like hard for us to get out there, you know what I mean? But like we played with Slipknot, the Slipknot tribute band or whatever out there
Right.
at the Coliseum or whatever, the ruins at the Coliseum or whatever.
Okay.
It's a pretty small place, but it was definitely one of the more fun shows we played for sure. You know, just being like kind of out, you know, out of town. You know what I mean? Like nobody really knew us and stuff, so we didn't really have like, you know, like a reputation, you know, upkeep or anything like that. You know, it was just like kind of like a fresh crowd. You know, like they hadn't heard us before, so it wasn't like people were like bored because we're playing the same songs they've already heard, or you know what I mean.
Right.
Nobody really knew who we were, so like kind of like take on like, you know, can almost take on like a different like personality. You know what I mean, when people don't already know who you are, which is kind of cool. You know.
It's super weird when you're playing in front. You play so many shows in front of like people like you see on a regular basis. You know, like you played 50 shows, and you know about 25 of those people have seen you. You know, a good 20 times. You know,
Yeah.
and then you go and play in front of people that you have no idea who anybody is, and it's just weird. And I totally understand that's, you know, sentiment. You get to play in front of new people. You guys, so you guys ended up coming out with a new album, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Little 6-song EP.
okay. So why don't you go ahead and tell us about that? Like, like that's not the album you guys were working on back in like February, March, right?
Yeah, it is actually.
It
Like
is okay.
we
So
put out Into the Falls like 2 years ago in January, which is like the last song on the album. And I mean, at that point, you know, like we're kind of trying to, you know, just write and stuff. Like I know you had offered a couple shows to us and stuff like that, and I was always like, oh man, like I'd like to, but like we're really focused on writing and not so much on playing out at this point. And it was like, you know, it was a long time coming, more or less. And I'm kind of just glad it's out at this point, but also in some senses, I'm kind of glad that like we took as long as we did, because when it came down to it and we put out Into the Falls, like we had a couple of songs on deck, and like none of those songs are on this album. You know, like we had a couple of songs we were writing, but like they weren't really like they weren't really kind of like up to par as to what we really wanted. And
right,
you know, I was actually almost thankful for the COVID, like the whole quarantine thing, because it like kind of like
what?
forced us to just like be home and like get our shit done. You know what I mean? Like it's like I say, Mark was just on a writing fit. You know what I mean? Just like pumping out like ideas and stuff. And James would swing by his house and like, you know, like they'd bounce stuff off of each other and kind of like fine tune the songs. And like at this point, like we've probably like almost 20 like just songs that are just like kind of half laid out, just like laying in Jeff's computer. You know, like we demoed them out, and then like there was like parts about them we didn't really like, and then we didn't really, you know, bother to go in and like really try to fix them. We just kind of like let go of them. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I feel like after, you know, taking as much time as we actually like did really to get these songs like out and like released, I feel like we kind of just ended up with a, you know, better product, more or less, you know, in the end. Because like
And
a lot
who?
of the songs we had were kind of like, I was like, oh, you know, like I didn't even have lyrics for like a lot of them, you know, like because, you know, writing lyrics is kind of, you know, it's kind of like consuming thing, you know what I mean? So
Yeah. So when I still can't get over the fact that you said it was a blessing in disguise. Basically, I'm just like,
kind of almost was.
yeah, It was a blessing in disguise that the whole COVID quarantine thing happened, and I'm just like, you didn't just say that. You're the only person I've ever heard say that.
Right. Just from a standpoint of being able to write, you know.
Right? No, I get you. You know, I had to throw a little jab there. So, but with those other songs that you have, you guys can always go back and like restructure them, work on them, you know, for like another, you know, EP further down the road. So that's the cool thing about, you know, keep writing and everything. And, you know, Mark and Jeff, that's the other guitarist, correct? Or is that the bassist? I'm sorry.
Jeff's, Jeff is the bassist, and James is the other guitarist.
It's the Jays. So
Yeah, I know.
Jeff is the one that has all the guitars, right? He has like all the equipment. He has the good stuff.
Yeah,
Okay, so
yeah.
I do remember
he's got
that.
a good amount of guitars and basses, and like he just buys stuff on a whim a lot of times. He's like, I don't like this guitar. I'm just gonna order it. It's like, all right.
I'm gonna sell this now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It seems like you guys have like a great chemistry, and I know that you guys ended up parting ways with Aaron, right?
Yeah.
Okay, and we don't have to talk about that. So tell us about the um, about how you guys ended up with the new drummer.
Well, I mean, whenever everything went down with Aaron, like I like, like I was saying, I love jamming guitar and stuff, and I was actually playing with this kid Tom, and he was trying to get like a project started and stuff, and he ended up actually finding Max, and Max had like just moved up from Florida, he moved to like Springfield or something, and Tom ended up finding him, and like I jammed with him and stuff, and kind of like it was it was probably like maybe a month or two before everything went down with Aaron, and I don't know, like it came down to it, and I was like, oh, like I need a drummer, and like like the thing with Tom, like it was it was kind of picking up a little bit, but like we weren't really like it was kind of up in the air still, and I was like I hit up Max, I was like, hey, you got any interest in maybe trying out for As Misery Fades, so he ended up going up and jamming with Mark and James, just kind of like because I had already jammed with him, I knew he was a solid drummer, so like we all went up there, and he kind of just jammed out, and like ended up just ended up working out. So I mean, like I already kind of apologized to Tom. I was like, I'm sorry, I kind of snaked him, but like, and he was like, no, it's okay, man. Like he kind of had like a feeling that like he was kind of more because like interested in like maybe doing something a little kind of heavier, you know what I mean? Like because the project with Tom was kind of I don't know, it was more like kind of almost like rock, like kind of Every Time I Die, which like I love Every Time I Die, like it was a fun project and stuff, but Tom was kind of getting the feeling that Max like wanted something a little heavier, you know what I mean? Which when Max joined the band, we kind of like we had written Into the Falls, and it was in drop C. After that, we are like, you know what? We could probably go down to drop A and like, really get a little bit
Jesus.
heavier. And that's what Horrors of Human Nature is written in. So like the whole album, other than Into the Falls, is in drop A. So it was like.
So are you guys playing that on? Are they playing it on 6 strings, or are they playing it 7?
Initially, it was 6 strings we were playing it on. We recorded it with 6 strings, and then like probably like right around when we like kind of were finishing it up and stuff, like Mark ended up picking up a 7-string Cort, and James ended up picking up one like shortly after too, because it's like you might as well. But, like we're really like from the standpoint of that, it's like we're not like playing the 7s to like get that super super low. Like we ended up actually taking like basically a drop A tuning and tuning the high string to where we have like an extra string. You know what I mean? It's almost like like it's A and then it's standard E from that down. So it's like
So the low E would be the A string, and everything else would, or it's technically a B string, right?
Yeah, it's like A D G B. You know what I mean? Like just the low string is the low A, and then it's just basically a standard tuning from there down.
Oh, okay. Now I see what you're saying. Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
I was a little confused there.
yeah.
I haven't been playing guitar I actually haven't touched my guitar in over a year.
Yeah, honestly, it's pretty much the same for me, man. Like I barely ever pick up my guitar. Like I love it, but like I just finding the time for it and everything. And now with having the little man, it's like like I'm devoting a lot more of my time to him than like picking up my guitar and playing and stuff. That's why like every once in a while I'll just go up and jam with Mark just to like kind of get my fix and like just to kind of force myself to play a little bit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and
So
I need to. My guitar is literally sitting right here, and I'm like looking at it, and I'm like, it's collecting dust.
yeah, like I picked up a 7 string like right around when my pet carcass kind of started to like fizzle out a little bit, and like
Right.
I'm playing that here and there, but like not nearly as much as I should be, or as much as I want to. It's basically it's sitting right there staring at me right now. You know what I mean? Like,
I
oh
have
man.
I have my 6 string here. I've had this thing for about 10 years. I have my 7 string sitting at my old guitarist's house with my 5 string bass.
Yeah.
And it's been there since February, I want to say. Yeah, it's been
Yeah.
been that long. So I want you to tell us a funny story about your band that nobody knows.
Oh,
Something
Jesus.
something that'll make everybody laugh. Like somebody like mooned the like a train station or something like that. Just you know, as long as it's legal.
Yeah.
I don't want any illegal action. Like somebody going, oh, he admitted it. No, just like
Yeah.
give us something that was funny that happened with you guys. It could be during like recording practice, during a show.
Well, I mean, I don't know. That Rhode Island show is just a wild time, pretty much. Like, we were all obviously drinking. You know what I mean? Like, we were there, and me and Mark were, we're like, I think we're stuck with like our girls' jackets and stuff, and we're looking around trying to find them, like trying to find them and get their jackets back to them. Like we want to do our own thing or whatever, and
Right.
we're hammered, freaking everybody's drunk, and like we're walking around looking for them, and like outside, and there was like 2 other like little venues inside this one venue, so like we went upstairs and like peeked in this other venue, and like did they make their way up here, or were they down here still? And we finally found them, and they were up front at Slipknot, and like my girl was like untying freaking Kyle Small's shoes on stage and stuff, and they were like, just, they were just freaking, we are like, you guys have been up here this whole time. We've been running around looking for you. You know what I mean? Then came down to it, and we're looking for Aaron's keys. Aaron was still in the band at the time, and he was 2 shits to the wind. So like we were like, all right, we're looking for his keys, because like I was just gonna drive his car because my girl's mom lives out in Rhode Island, so we were all just gonna crash there, so we didn't have to drive all the way back to Mass, freaking 2 hour almost drive. So we drove, we were looking around for Aaron's keys, like looking all over the place, and we like couldn't find his car. We're like, where'd you park? So finally, like I had taken his keys from him earlier in the night and totally forgot about it.
They were in your
Put it in his
pocket.
jet. Yeah. Freaking looking all over the place with his kids' keys. They were in my pocket the whole time. We're like, what the hell? All right, let's go. Let's get to the house. So we got to the house. Freaking Aaron passed out. James ended up passing out in my girl's mom's dog's bed. Like just laying on the dog's bed, like fucking. And me, Mark, and both our girls and my girl's mom were basically just freaking up till like 4 a.m, just hanging out at the house. But I don't know. That's probably the best like funny story I can come up with offhand.
Have you ever fallen on stage?
No, but there's been a lot of times where I have like like I'll go to like dip down, and like I'll step on the mic cable, and I'll go to like stand back up to like do a scream, and like the mic like gets caught under my foot. Like, and I'm just looking like an idiot. I'm like, oh my god. Right? Can't
Yeah,
say I've ever eaten shit on stage though. I don't think anybody else really has that I can come up with.
have you
But there was a part in Into the Falls when we were filming the video. We were like trying to get like the jump shot in like the beginning or whatever, and one of the
Okay.
takes James ended up like we all jumped at the same time, and James nailed his head on the rafter and just freaking went down when he hit the ground. And was freaking just like, oh, we're all laughing our asses off.
So how long did it take you guys to do that video? Because I was a part of the Physics of Denies shoot for one of their songs, and it literally took like 12 hours.
Yeah, it took most of the day. It was probably a good like I don't know, probably 6, 8 hours, give or take. Because we ended up actually renting out the Rapids in Huntington to like this restaurant or whatever. We ended up renting out like the stone room in the basement.
Right.
So they used to have like I guess so, like during the summer and stuff, they'll have like it open down there and stuff. So we ended up renting it out, and it was in the middle of January. There was no heat down there. We had a heat like a space heater like this big. That was all we had for heat down there. So we were freaking freezing our asses off down there. But it probably took us like a good 6 or 8 hours, and that was probably about the same too with the A Grave Mistake video, which we actually rented out at like a freaking like a clubhouse or like a motorcycle club, like clubhouse or whatever. Like, and they had like their own little bar in there, so we had a couple drinks or whatever, and we filmed most of it there. And then the next day, we actually did like the storyline shots or whatever for it. So
basically putting it together, chopping it and whatnot.
Yeah. Jeff Adam has done both of our videos. Was it JL Promotions or JL Productions, I think it is, or something. He does really good work. Like we pretty much always work with him for the most part. But
so we're gonna end up cutting this episode. I want to thank you so much for coming on, Zack. Please tell everybody where they can find your music and what's going on or whatever. Promote your stuff. That's what you're here for.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can pretty much find it anywhere. It's on Amazon Music, Apple Music, Spotify, iTunes, YouTube. Got our Facebook and Instagram. We try to keep up on. We do have a Twitter, but I don't know. It's pretty much kind of like we have like 3 Twitters actually, because one person made one, other person made one, not realizing it was there already, and then ended up getting made again because nobody realized we already had one. So we're on Twitter as well. Right now, we do have physical copies as well of the album, Horrors of Human Nature, which, I mean, they're $5 for 6 songs. We're still trying to figure out the logistics of, payment and shipping and everything like that, because we don't have like a merch store or anything yet. So to get that straight, we'll be able to actually ship them out and everything. But you can always buy them digital. Still working out. We do have some songs up on Reverb Nation. Working on trying to get the Bandcamp all set up so we can have that as well. Right now we are trying to like write some more tunes. We are looking at trying to pump out more, like basically less more often, as far as like doing some singles instead of like focusing on like a whole EP or a whole like album or whatever. So we're gonna be working on that pretty soon. We got a couple songs demoed out, but it's like I said before, like we have like a million songs that are demoed that just kind of got forgotten about or collecting dust. So we'll see what happens with these. If all goes well, we should hopefully be able to get something out within some kind of single out within the next few months or so. But
yeah, definitely going to be looking forward to hearing that. Got to say, man, the first time I heard, I popped your CD in. It was that demo that you gave me, and I've always loved Strings of Corruption.
Yeah.
And I remember there was just, this is going to be my last little bit. I heard that you guys re-recorded it. Is that what? Because I heard a different version from what was on the demo.
Yeah, we had it. We did do like kind of like a scratch track demo kind of thing. We were just kind of like just giving it out or whatever. But we do actually have like we worked with actually Ben John from Stillwork Productions. He's he's more or less helped us out with most of our releases. He was a sound engineer for the first EP, which actually has Strings of Corruption and Victims of Routine was another, good song off of that, and The Hour at Hand, Breaking Point. That was our first EP. The second one, we actually recorded some songs with Joel Stretzel from Killswitch. He did all the string. He did all the strings and everything. That was a little 3-song with Grave Mistake, and Cognitive Dissonance on it. And that was what we did the video for. But Ben again did a lot of the mixing and mastering, and he was kind of like a point of contact for Horrors of Human Nature. So Ben's always been, a solid guy, to have on board for recording and everything. So
that's pretty cool, dude. That's awesome that you guys got to work with Joel from Killswitch. So we're going to call it an episode. Before we go, I'm going to play the video from As Misery Fades called Into the Falls. Enjoy. Zach, just stay on, okay?
All right, man.